7:06.
7:06.
Yes.
Are we going?
Yep.
Okay, good evening, everyone. This is the council meeting for Monday, February the 2nd, 2026. Excuse me, it's working okay now?
Yes.
It's a special meeting that we called because we have 6 contractors who responded to our request for proposal for compensation studies. And I called a special meeting tonight so that we could look at 3 of them. And on Wednesday night, we will be looking at another 3. So I have the agenda in front of me. And before we get into that, I have on the agenda residents' concerns. So if anybody would like to take the podium before we get started, please do. Let's move on, right? Okay. Oh, you want to go to the podium? Okay.
Oh.
You sneak that.
You have to borrow this
Oh, wait,
microphone.
hold on.
Thank you. And here.
So let it go.
Your name,
Hello.
your name and
I'm sorry.
address?
That's just for Ignelli.
My name is Carlita Wall. I live at 5924 89th Avenue. Hello, everybody. How are you today? I have a concern and I have a comment ending with a question. I have been a resident of New Carrollton, Maryland for 33 years plus. I have never witnessed so much disrespect and insane actions as this. My neighbor's renter took it upon himself to take a bulldozer and illegally dump snow from the city street onto my and another neighbor's private property. We asked him to stop. We yelled and everything we could do. He did not stop. He made room for others to park their cars. He was trespassing. And he threw my trash can and my recycling bin in the front of the yard, which I paid $40 for each bush. Why is this allowed for him to do this and no repercussion? But if I dump on somebody's private property, it's not allowed. I ask that you put yourself in my shoes respectfully, and I have reached out. Thank you.
The address again, please.
5924 89th Avenue. And I have pictures and videos and whatever else is needed. Thank you.
Colleen, right?
Carlita.
Carlita, I'm sorry. Carlita, I don't want to respond to the concern, but I do want you to know that the mayor had on our agenda the prior meeting what the responsibilities are of the council versus the administration. And she asked that we have any complaints like that go directly to the administration. So Maisha will take care of it now, but you should let the mayor know. And I will say that I saw a number of people email the mayor and they copied me, and the mayor did respond to all of them related to that snow. So anybody else want the podium? We're not going to dwell. Yes, you're welcome. Thank you for being here tonight. We're not going to dwell on snow tonight. We're going to do these contractors. If that's it, then we have interview. The first one is Gallagher. Are they available? 7 o'clock. They're on screen. Okay.
I'm here.
Okay. Welcome. Sorry, we're a few minutes late. I'll blame it on the snow, but we'll give you. I'd like you to try to keep it to 20 minutes. I'd like you to give us 5 minutes or so and give us time for questions. If you need a little longer, we'll see what we can do. Okay. You ready to start?
I'm ready to start.
Okay.
And I'm going to go ahead and share screen if that is okay.
Please do.
Bear with me here. One.
No, he's with Gallagher. Gallagher. Okay.
This is Gallagher.
There we go. All right.
First one on my packet.
And just to confirm what you see real quick. Is my screen sharing with you?
Yes.
Are you seeing the full slide or presenter mode? What do we see?
Presenter mode. It's not a presenter mode. It's not. Because if it was a presenter mode, you wouldn't see the sidebar.
All right. I'm going to switch it up here. Bear with me 1 second. Some days technology is your friend, other days
Now.
it presents you its own unique little challenges. Let's try this one more time. All right. Should be full screen now, I believe. So, all right. Well, thank you for the time this evening and to sort of talk through our proposal and our understanding of what the city of New Carrollton is looking for in a study. I will try to be efficient and expeditious as we move through this to leave time for any and all questions you might have. As we dig into that, a little bit about our team and our practice. My name is Eric Sotana. I serve as the Managing Director and National Practice Leader for Gallagher's Public Sector Community and Education Consulting Team. We work with cities and counties and other bodies nationwide. We've been doing this work for about 40 years, and our primary focus is the public sector. And so we work with cities like New Carrollton and others across the country in that broader space on sort of people management, compensation, classification, organizational design, and other related services. We operate a little bit as a boutique sort of consulting firm, sort of meeting our clients where they are and where they want to be. That said, we're fortunate that we have the resources of a much larger organization. We're a part of Gallagher. Gallagher is an international firm based just outside of Chicago, Illinois. And we were founded in 1927, so almost 100 years ago. We've been doing this work from a consulting perspective, as well as risk insurance and other sort of related activities there. We have about 70,000 employees nationwide. My team, we're distributed across the country from coast to coast and serve clients as far west as Hawaii, up and down the eastern seaboard, and all points in between. Digging into our understanding of your particular needs, what we understand is that you have a need around a classification study, compensation study, benchmark analysis, organizational assessment, and then implementation, costing, and communications that tie into that. And so we'll dig into sort of those component parts as we work our way through. So, starting with how we do the work that we do, we follow a model called CARES, in which it sort of stands for Collaborate, Consult, Advise, Assess, Recommend and Resource, Engage, Endorse, Strategize, and Serve. And that sort of feeds into everything that we do. This really is a collaboration and a partnership. So this is not a thing where we provide some deliverables and we disappear. We're here to support you through the project, all the way through from day zero through the end, and then after you move towards implementation. We do that in a handful of ways. We start with what we call a preliminary meeting. And so that's a data discovery discussion that we have with you. From there, we then move into a kickoff meeting. And so it's our full project team, anyone from the city that wants to be a part of that from your end. We move into regular status meetings. So every other week, typically through the project, we're working with you, partnering on where we're at, where we're headed, what we've accomplished, what comes next. Is we're developing deliverables. We're meeting with you, reviewing those in real time, so you can give that feedback in real time. And we move towards sort of final presentation reports and so on. All along the way, we're going to have ongoing leadership connects. So aside from our project team, regular sort of conversations with myself or a member of the leadership team to make sure you're getting what you need, how you need it, and the way that you want to receive that information and that partnership. At the end of the project, we would have a project closeout meeting. And then internally, we have an after action review in which we make sure that we've done the things that we said we're going to do, and we learn from every project engagement that we have. Digging into the actual nitty-gritty of the work, we would start with looking at the classification and career framework. There's lots of ways that we can approach this. We understand where you're at today. We want to understand the roles, the position, the work that's being performed. And with that, we then begin to talk about what does that framework look like on a going forward basis. That can take a lot of different looks and different ways that it can be designed. Typically, as you see here on the screen, we build something that's centered around job families, functions, role tracks, role levels, and we tie that back to the pay structure. At the same time, we're reviewing FLSA, the Fair Labor Standards Act, to make sure those positions that are exempt are appropriately classified and so on. But we build a class structure that you can maintain and sustain on a going forward basis for years to come, that allows you to have something that can be sustained independent of us. And that's our goal, is that for all of our deliverables, you have a structure and you have the tools and resources to maintain this independent of the consulting firm that you work with on a going forward. In addition to the class framework, how we build that, part of it gets into how we evaluate jobs. And so as we think about job evaluation, we're a little bit uniquely situated in that we're not beholden to any one particular job evaluation approach or methodology. There are 5 sort of main ones. We're happy to perform whichever one of those makes the most sense for the city. There's whole job ranking, which works great sometimes for smaller organizations. It helps us understand the job worth hierarchy. There's classification grading that takes that classification framework we talked about on the previous slide and builds a structure primarily based on that. There's point factor. Sometimes folks have heard that referred to as the Hayes methodology. We can do that. We have a tool that does that kind of work. Factor comparison, that's really focused on decision-making, autonomy, level of authority. Again, we have an approach that's tied to that. And then market analysis method, in which we talk about here's what these roles pay in the market and sort of building a structure around that. Whether it's one of these 5 or a combination of these, we're happy to make sure that you're prepared to be able to manage that in terms of what's the best fit for the city. The thing that's most important to us as we think about that approach is really sort of these 3 principles. What can be, again, maintained and sustained internally by the city, by your team there that will continue to manage this on a going forward. What can be easily communicated either to members of the administration, to the community, to the workforce itself, and what's defensible. All 5 or a combination thereof of the 5 are all defensible, but it's really a matter of what's the right fit in terms of number 1 and number 2 for the city as we think about job evaluation. As we move from that, from the classification structure, from the job evaluation, we start to think about data. There's a handful of ways that we do that. We would pull in data from our library, internal library, both from a total rewards perspective as well as a pay perspective as appropriate. Gallagher runs some of the largest surveys in the country, including our national benchmarking survey. We would work to do some custom market intelligence. And so we understand who are your peer institutions, what are those titles that we're collecting data on. We facilitate a custom survey. So we build that survey, we deploy that survey, we collect that information, we bring it back in, and then we supplement that with information from our published market data. Again, we have a very large survey library that includes data from other firms, and we do that as a supplementary process. So we start with your custom data, we then come in with that data that's from the published survey. So you have a whole snapshot of what the market's doing across all of your roles there at the city, so you can make decisions on a going forward basis. Because we really think about the work coming out of this as decision support to help you make informed decisions on a going forward. As we talk a little bit more about that benchmarking in terms of how we do that, we're going to follow FTC and Department of Labor guidelines. We're following methodologies around job matching. We're not just looking at titles. We're looking to understand at your current job descriptions, what are roles doing, how are they performing that work, and making those matches. As we talk about the labor markets, you might have a peer group that we would begin with. If you don't, we can help you build that from scratch. But we want to make sure we're grabbing the correct and right kind of information to inform your structure. For any published data, it's all been validated, normed, and it's respected data. We look at trend factors from the world of work, from the Department of Labor, as well as Gallagher's own data in terms of what is the market doing, how is it performing, what does that look like on a going forward? And then we're leveraging Economic Resource Institute data, not just from what the market's doing, but also allowing us to look at cost of labor, so that we understand what is the true cost of labor there within the city of New Carrollton and from the broader county and the broader area with that. We can layer that into it. So it's a really true snapshot, regardless of where your peer organizations may reside. We can right size that essentially for dollar to dollar comparisons. As we think about that data, how we're collecting that information and so on, we go through a data review process. We're looking at your position descriptions. We're performing statistical outlier analyses. We're collecting that data. We're bringing that data in. We're being really thoughtful about what we're doing with that because we really understand the positions that you have, how they work, how they operate. We're going to take all of that market data, whether it's custom data, published survey data, et cetera, and we're going to age it forward to a common date. Typically, that might be the start of your fiscal year. That could be a different date based on how you like to deliver pay or increases and so on. But we work with you to identify that date and age that information forward. And as I said before, we make those geographic adjustments that are related to cost of labor to ensure that you really have that dollar-to-dollar comparison in terms of what the market is doing and how it's performing. As we go from there, we build the compensation structure. And so with that, we're providing a variety of support there. So we're building typically 2 to 3 different structure alternatives, not a single structure. We're building grade and range structures, and we're using that market data and your internal information to ensure it's right size. We're going to look at internal equity. We're going to look at compression. And we're going to adjust and make recommendations around that. We're going to provide different implementation options. So 3 structures, 3 implementation options across those. So you really have information that talks about where you're at relative to the market and how you might want to approach this from an implementation perspective. We're not the kind of firm that goes off for 5-6 months, comes back with some information and says best of luck. It really is that partnership and that collaboration. And to that end, we're going to train your team, whomever that may be, to maintain and sustain these tools, both from understanding how the market data looks, but also those evaluation approaches and so on, and help you prepare to maintain this structure on a going forward basis.
All right, Eric.
Yes.
You think we can allow some time for questions in here? Do you have much more?
I think I can only wrap through this slide and I can stop presenting.
Okay.
So the last part is the organizational assessment and design. And this is a snapshot of our organizational assessment tool. And so you can get some idea of sort of the kinds of things we're looking at in terms of span of control, staffing ratios, how the organization is structured. We take your information, put this into the tool, include as part of our analysis so that we can present really sort of thoughtful representation of what we're doing and make recommendations centered around that. I can stop presenting from there. That's the last sort of major bit of data. From there, though, I would say the biggest thing to just sort of keep in mind, as I said, it's a partnership. We're bringing experts to the table to do this work. If we're fortunate to work with the city, your team will have my direct phone number. It's the only number I've had since 1999. And so if you have questions, we're always happy to hop on a call. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Let me hold the microphone here, and I'll go last. I know everybody's read this. Why don't I start online? Brianna, did you study this one? You have any questions for Eric?
Oh, can you hear me all right?
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Just one question. Are you familiar with working with municipalities in the DMV region? And the reason why I ask this is a lot of different market statistics around the DMV can vary so widely because there's such huge income gaps between, a similar sized city in Northern Virginia is completely different than a similar sized city to us here in Maryland and vice versa. So I was just curious about your level of experience working with municipalities in the DMV region.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, if we think about sort of where we do the most of our work, it's in that broader region. It's in our sort of top 5 places, Virginia, Maryland, some of those surrounding areas there in the Northeast. And we do a lot of work in that broader area from both the city, county, as well as other sort of agencies or special districts, authorities, and so on in that broader area.
And then I guess the follow-up question to that would be, obviously the market demands certain salaries for certain positions and skill sets and things that we need in our city, but then there's the realities of our city budget, right? Yep. And so there could be one city that I think is a good comparator to us would be La Plata in Charles County, Maryland, because they're similar size staff. However, their mean incomes for their community are much higher than ours. Our median income here is about $96,000. Theirs is over 120. So I think that's substantial. How does that factor into the determinations you guys make in terms of what are proper salaries, what are proper staffing sizes for a city? You can't just use the city's population as the basis for what services we can provide. It has to be based, on the money that we actually receive in revenue.
That's a great question. And so it's a multi-part answer. And so the first part with that is how do we identify those other peer cities? And so we work with you to understand sort of what are those key city demographics that we want to look at. Is that community size? Is that sort of base income? What are those other components that are important as we think about that, so that we can start to build a representative group of other cities that look and feel like you overall. From that, we're also looking at the titles to say, let's talk about what titles might exist in New Carrollton that do or don't exist at those other places. So we're making sure it's thorough. Once we establish that and we start to collect that data, we take a cost of labor differential. So we do some math around it, that we say, what is a dollar in New Carrollton is worth $1. But then as we look at those other places, is their dollar more or less than your dollar from a cost of labor? And we right size it so that with the final analysis, it really becomes a dollar to dollar comparison, so that we can sort of talk about if we need to discount a specific piece of data, say, well, gosh, it's really not the same thing. So their $1.50 is really worth $1 or vice versa in New Carrollton. So you have good data that talks about where you're at in terms of what the actual labor market is there. The other piece that we apply is a cost of living. I'm sorry, not cost of living, a living wage factor that we say, what is the living wage where you're at? And that's the other part of that analysis that gets built into it. So we're doing that geographic adjustment to really talk about what is a dollar in New Carrollton from the cost of paying an employee to do work. And then the other part of that, looking at the living wage. And then the third part of that is once we do have those recommendations, the reason we build multiple structures and multiple implementation scenarios is recognizing budgets sometimes can be challenging. And if you have issues or challenges relative to pay, they may not have necessarily happened overnight. And so the ability to solve everything may not be fixable overnight. So with that, we're building those different structures. And if appropriate, based on the option that the city would go with, we can build that into a multi-year scenario also. If you say we'd like option 1, scenario 2, but we really need that over 3 years, we're happy to build that as part of it as well. So we're going to build the structure, we're going to build the implementation scenarios, and then we're going to build that multi-year scenario if that's appropriate for where you need, as we do all the work that then says, here's really what the dollar is worth from a labor market perspective.
All right, Mr. Chair, I have 2 more questions. They might be able to be quick ones. Is that all right?
Everybody has them. Go ahead. Be quick, please.
Okay.
Eric,
Next question.
brief answers too.
We had a compensatory study, a compensation study done 9 years ago. How long is this data usually good for?
3 to 5 years, typically.
All right. And you know what? I've forgotten my next question. Somebody else will probably have it. So thank you.
Thank you, Brianna. Cynthia, you have any questions?
No,
Cynthia?
Brianna asked the question I was going to ask about how
Okay.
you
So that's
tell
two
the
down.
difference. Okay.
There's 2 down and go over to Agnelli. You have questions, Agnelli?
Yes. The RFP contained 3 elements or issues that we're concerned, and your proposal, I couldn't find any information on how the audit of wages and salaries is planning to be conducted, and that's a critical element of the RFP. Can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So where we're a little bit differently situated is that our studies tend to be more comprehensive. And so while you called it out specifically in the RFP is a line item, that's a standard part of any of our compensation studies, in that we're taking your employee information, we're performing compression analyses, we're performing market analyses, we're performing internal equity analyses. And so our work looks at the appropriateness of pay at not just the position level, but the person level. And our recommendations are informed by all of that. And so that's a standard part of all of our compensation studies. And so apologies for not calling it out specifically, but it's something that we incorporate in all of our work.
Well, it makes me nervous because RFP has very specific call outs regarding that task that are not addressed in your proposal.
Yeah, if we're fortunate to work with you, what I can commit to you is that the scope of work or the statement of services, we can be explicit to ensure your level of comfort that those items are addressed.
So within the phases that you established in your proposal, there is strategic alignment and project initiation. Phase 2, classification and career framework review and design. Phase 3, organizational assessment. Phase 4, compensation, benchmarking and marketing analysis. And Phase 5, implementation strategy and final reports. Where's the audit fit within that?
Yeah. No, and so the audit takes place as part of the compensation benchmarking as well as the classification component of the study. There's different parts of that audit because we're auditing from an FLSA perspective, we're auditing from a pay to market perspective, we're auditing from an internal equity perspective, we're auditing from a compression perspective. And so a lot of the work that we do inside the study is reviewing where you're at today, trying to understand how you arrive there and whether or not we believe that's appropriate to the market, or in some cases, whether or not that's appropriate to legal standards.
Okay. And we're looking at 6 months. for the
That's a
work.
typical study time, yes. I would say on average, it's 5 to 7 months. We typically couch it at 6 months.
Since you were including the audit as part of 2 different phases, there would not be deliverables available to the city council for just that task ahead of the final delivery report. Would that be an appropriate assessment?
We certainly can provide that in advance of that. We're happy to talk about the reports that you may need at different components, depending on sort of your reporting year, your fiscal year, various other components you may need. We often will provide sort of supplementary reports throughout the course of a study once we understand sort of the on-the-ground needs of the client and sort of the cycle that you're working through. So if there is a study regarding that or a report regarding that audit that would be beneficial to the city council in advance of the end of the study, we're happy to provide that.
Okay, this question is stuck in my head, and please excuse me if I confuse this question and it's not applicable to you and another of the companies. Does your proposal stipulate that there would be a cost of $500 per job description that were to be delivered? Is that part of your proposal, or do I have it confused with someone else?
Yes, if the city were to request that we rewrite job descriptions, so write new job descriptions for you, that would be an additional cost that's not included in the proposal itself.
Okay.
Now, if we understand that volume ahead of time, we certainly often discount that. That's sort of the standard rate. We said we need 1 job description written. That's typically the rate. But if you came back and said we need X, we typically discount that based on the volume.
That would be hard to know until we hear what you find in terms of job classification.
Right.
Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Lincoln.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, sir, for your presentation. I'll point out a couple things that stood out to me as I was reading through your proposal. We've been in business Gallagher since 1927. I saw a mention of 1,500 classification and compensation related studies. The public sector and higher education consulting practice, is that the arm of the company that actually does this type of work?
Yes, that's the name of my particular practice. We actually renamed ourselves about 2 weeks ago. We're public sector, community, and education now. So that's a little bit different from the time we submitted the proposal. That's our new name. We brought in some other parts of the practice, but that is our focus. That is my team. There's about 42 of us on my team that do this work.
I saw you made mention of CARES, which I thought was very good. I see collaborate, consult, advise, assess, recommend, resource, engage, endorse, and strategize, and serve. That was very impressive. Quick question for you. The typical compensation projects take 6 months. Have you ever completed one in shorter time frame than that?
Yes, it kind of depends. If you have sort of other milestones or dates that you need, we can talk about sort of advancing that more quickly. I have a study right now that's happening in New Jersey that we are on a 4-month timeline and target. We've done, depending on the composite scope, typically 4 months is the shortest. I would be comfortable with any custom survey work, because that custom survey typically takes sort of 6 to 8 weeks in the timeline. And I want to make sure you have good information, but we have done it faster. And our goal is always to move as efficiently and as quickly as possible. But we couch it at that 6 months to say, we don't anticipate it would take longer than 6 months, but if we can finish it sooner, that's always our goal.
Just 2 more questions.
Sure.
Can you explain your job analysis questionnaire and how that works with the actual compensation and study?
Yes. Yeah, and so for the JAQ, the job analysis questionnaire, we deliver that electronically. It can be completed on a computer, it can be completed on a phone, anything that sort of has access to that. It's a digital survey in which we ask employees to complete that, provide that information back. We take that in, and we would walk you through a demonstration of that. And if there's any tweaks that you want to it ahead of time before it was delivered to employees, we certainly do that as well. But it's delivered electronically via a tool called Qualtrics, which is a surveying tool. We pull that information in as part of that process. We also can talk about sort of how that's completed, whether it's every individual employee or if you have employees who are doing the same kind of work, they can certainly do a group job analysis questionnaire. That sometimes is impactful or effective sometimes, especially for those roles where maybe they're not readily using a computer every day as part of their job. That sometimes is a helpful way to approach it.
Thank you, sir. Last question. We use OpenGov here in the city of New Carrollton to maintain our data. Is the data that you collect, would you think that would be compatible with the systems that we have here?
Yeah, and so in terms of how we provide the deliverables, we're going to provide you a couple different files in an XLS format, so an Excel format, so that it can be uploaded into whatever HRIS ERP that you're using with that. And so big part of that is what we call an employee pay file. So it's the actual change recommendations or the change file for every employee. And what does that look like in all the different component parts? And so we have yet to run into a system where the files were not compatible for an upload.
That it?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm done.
I only have 6 questions, Eric. No. My colleagues have done a very thorough job of analyzing this. There's not much more I can ask, but thank you for being with us, Eric. I'm gonna pass on any other questions. Thank you, guys. The team has really read this thoroughly. We're gonna move on to the second presenter tonight.
Okay.
Okay, Eric, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Okay?
My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Best of luck with the process. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Number 2 is Capital T Solutions. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, welcome. You're gonna use this microphone because our council person needs this, and you can take the podium.
So you can sit at the podium or you can sit here. It's completely up to you. I think.
If you want to work with papers and sit down, that's fine, whatever works for you.
Okay.
The camera can get you at either place, I hope.
You can wear this around.
Oh, okay.
You know, I prefer you sit down. Oh, no, the camera's
sure.
over there? Okay, I didn't know the camera got over there.
Sitting is fine.
I just wanted the camera to get you. I didn't know the camera
Oh,
went
okay.
over there.
It's not.
Okay.
So you can put this around the neck, so you don't have to hold it. And I did want to correct something real quick.
Okay.
Paycom is what we use as our HRIS system.
Capital T.
Yes,
Thank you. Welcome.
thank you. Thank you guys for having me. I am the CEO of Capital T Solutions. We are a local accounting firm, CPA certified in Prince George's County. We also own the Prince George's County supply schedule. We do a lot of work in the county. Like I said, we're locally based, an accounting firm that does auditing, specialize in auditing. I'm here today to present our approach to the city of New Carrollton. Our approach will give you guys a clear, defensible insight, regulatory compliance, and actionable recommendations for you to make financial management and workforce decision making for the city of New Carrollton. Our engagement, as you can see in our proposal, we had 3 phases of the engagement. Our understanding from the SOP, it says 60 days, but we do have the 60+ days on our proposal because we understand that it may take a little time in order to produce what we produce in terms of our findings and our audit. So in our first phase, one of our things we would do is conduct a comprehensive audit review of the city's financials and compensation related data. This includes evaluating the city's internal control, your payroll practices, job classifications, and salary structure to ensure compliance with the state, federal, and local laws. That methodology emphasizes accuracy. Also, it reduces risk identification and physical responsibility. Next is our second phase, also broken out in our proposal for the city of New Carrollton, and we understand we draw it out in terms of the SOW. So the second phase will access the city's organization structure and workforce composition. We will review you guys' job descriptions, the pay grades of the employees, reporting structures and staffing levels to determine whether that current framework is appropriate for the city of New Carrollton. So we would go in and make sure that pay grades, job descriptions, reporting structures, and staffing levels is sufficient to what you are looking for to measure in terms of this audit. That will give you ensure findings of grounds, operational realities. So it will help you to be able to understand and be able to know what those salaries are and how you are identifying how those employees are getting those salaries, as well as those raises and the increases that is associated with those salaries. Our third and final phase will be a comprehensive compensation study that will incorporate market benchmarks and internal equity analysis. So our goal at Capital T for that is to compensate framework that is competitive, equitable, and financially sustainable for the city of New Carrollton. So those are what we drew up in terms of how we would approach the audit and the compensation for the city of New Carrollton, going through the SOW and the RFP. That's how we came up with our phases that we determined that would be feasible for the city of New Carrollton in terms of the time frame that we understood it to be in the actual RFP. So in our phase one, that would entail audit of the employee salaries and annual pay scales. What we will do as a deep dive is review the current salary schedules, pay grades, step increases, and historical annual salary adjustment. We will also analyze the payroll and personnel data to identify trends and anomalies and potential pay inequities. How we will deliver that. Our deliverable is to conduct that comprehensive review of all the employee starting wages. We will start from the beginning of their wages, salaries, and their annual pay increases starting from June 2020 to present. That's what the date we saw in the SOW. So we're going from June 2020 to the present current date. That includes both current and former employees across all departments and positions. Next, we will do a verification of the cost of living adjustments and pay scale progression. So that will be a review of the annual salary increases for each employee by fiscal year. And that will start from June 2020 to current fiscal year, which you guys are in. That would also verify alignment of the city of New Carrollton approved cost of living adjustment. We will verify that to make sure that the cost of living with these salaries and wages are in alignment. And also present that report to you guys as well. Next, we would do our confidential compensation reporting. That report will be a detailed report. It will have employee names, and it will also include the department of the city, position, employee's ID, hiring and start date, start grade and step, and their starting salary. And providing a year-over-year compensation data, including that starts from the salary of June 2020, June 2021, 22, 23, 24, 25, grade step salaries for those particular fiscal years for the city of New Carrollton. Then we would review an increase in seating the one step. This identifies salary increase resulting in an advancement of more than one step within a physical single year. So during our analysis of the SOW, we recognized that the city of New Carrollton was trying to justify how salaries go from one scale to the next in that current fiscal year. So we would definitely give our deep dive into that so that we understand and be able to identify, is that a feasible, applicable raise or scale, or is this something that should be done at a later period of time? Last, we would do an authorization of the budget review. That would entail capital T to review documentations, authorizing salaries and step increases. We would also examine the role of the human resources and finances and improve the implementation increases. So that means we're going in and we're looking at, once again, the budget review, that approved budget for the city of New Carrollton, which we already reviewed and took a study of, and basically going in that deep dive and looking at the salary and step increases to make sure it's in line with the current budget. Doing our phase 2 or task 2, or however you want to pronounce it, that's our organizational assessment for the city. That approach for capital T was reviewing the organization charts, job descriptions, and the departmental roles and responsibilities. That also entails us evaluating the staff levels in relations to workload demands, service delivery, objectives, and comparable justifications. So that's our organizational assessment. We are coming in and assessing how the organization is, the structure of the organization, doing a deep dive into how the organization is ran, and making sure that everything is in line, and making sure we're presenting that report to the city council. Lastly is our comprehensive compensation study. That approach tells capital T to market benchmark using comparable justifications and relevant labor markets. So we'll analyze internal equity across positions, departments, and job classification. The compensation and classification, that's one of our deliverables as well. That evaluates your current job classification with updates as needed to ensure clarity, consistency, and align with the city's operations. So the city of New Carrollton, we will be making sure that in this evaluation that you're aligned with your operations. It also will look at the internal equity analysis across departments and positions to assess fairness and appropriate role alignments. And our last and final deliverable in our phase task 3 will be your policy and process development. That will be compensation policy framework to support ongoing administration and maintenance of the wages and salaries, defining your processes and governance guidelines for future compensation reviews and adjustments. And that phase will provide the feasible data-driven foundation for compensation decision, the balanced market competitiveness, internal equity, and long-term financial sustainability. Any questions?
Lots of questions. I'll start with, I'm always gonna go last, so they can all be asked. Agnelli, you wanna start first this time? No?
Not hearing you.
Oh.
Can I ask?
Are they doing Brianna first? Is that
I could do Brianna first. I was gonna change a little bit.
Oh,
Brianna, why don't you
Cynthia
go
asked to go first. You can go to
wait.
Cynthia.
Cynthia, you wanna go first tonight?
Yes.
Hold on though. I
Okay,
gotta get the mic to.
we need the mic, Cynthia, so everybody can
Need to
hear.
borrow that.
Here you go, no problem.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, Cynthia's going first, so Maisha needs to be the Statue of Liberty.
All right, Ms. Mills, you're ready.
Okay, my question is, if we have an employee will your audit show employees doing the same job, duplicate work? That's one question. The second question is, will your audit also show somebody working higher than what they're getting paid for?
Yes, so.
Wait a minute, hold up.
Need the mic.
Yes, so in that review and what we will present to the city and the council, you would see that in the report that we produce to you. So that will have those findings and letting you know of duplicated positions, how salaries has increased in terms of should it has increased, We would also do a comparison with the surrounding municipalities to make sure that it's feasible for the city of New Carrollton and the city of this size to be in the same standards as the other municipalities in this region.
Cynthia, that good?
No, my question was, if someone is working above,
Hold on. Okay, go ahead.
my question is, if someone is working above or below their pay scale, will you be able to pick that up?
He said yes.
That was a yes?
Yes, we will be able to determine if they're working above or below their pay scale, depending on the job description. If this hits that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we're ready for the second questioner. Agnelli?
Okay.
Oh, well, you don't need that.
From the information presented, I gather that your strong suit is the auditing part of the work in the RFP, and the cost of task one, the auditing, is more than twice of task 2 and 3 combined. Also, the identified individuals to the work, at least in the proposal, seem to have the titles of everybody as auditor, senior auditor, junior auditor, junior auditor. Can you speak to your team's expertise for task 2 and task 3 regarding organizational assessments and compensation studies, which are beyond numbers and accounting?
Correct. Yes. So my team is well diverse, right? That's the junior auditors. So my team is well diverse. The junior auditors does handle as well as the compensation and the other tasks. So they're not just auditors. We just classify them as auditors because we do a lot of audits. So that's our classification of. But they've done studies before, organizational structures and things of that nature. Our senior auditor, very experienced, over 20 years in auditing and also compensation, CPA, we're certified, and then things of that nature. So we're very experienced to do the audit. We've done it before for other municipalities. So we understand what it takes. It's just the title. We can title our staff as junior auditors and senior auditors.
Can you speak to any recent experience with a municipality where you worked on the compensation aspects and organizational assessments? Because the references included in your proposal are all about the numbers. And so from my reading, I get that capital T is very strong in the accounting aspect, but that's only one task out of the 3 in the RFP. And so can you speak to your experience with?
So yes, we've done that in the past for another municipality. It was a small fraction of what we've done. Most of it was the audit side with the numbers, but we did include that organizational section where we did the organizational structure analysis. We presented that finding to the municipality, and then they were satisfied with that. So it wasn't a big portion of the audit that we did for that municipality. It was mostly based on their financials. But we was asked the task to do that role as well, and we jumped in and also take care of that. So yes, we've done that.
One more question, Mr. Chair, about the timeline.
Yes.
You put 60 plus for each of the 3 tasks. Are those to be run consecutive, or are you in total looking at 6 months to complete the work?
6 months. So we're putting in the 60 days that we saw in the SOW, but we're expecting it to go past that point. That's why it's the 60 plus. So what we entail, we will start with that first task, deep dive into the audit, and then the compensation will come following that aspect of it. And then our last portion will be the last task. So each task will have its own feasible source, and we will tackle that and then present those findings as we're moving forward and giving those deliverables to you.
Thank you so much. No more questions for me?
Okay, Brianna?
Wait a minute, hold on.
Just one question.
Wait a minute, Brianna, hold on.
I can wait.
Look at this.
Oh, no, everyone's getting their steps in. I love it.
Calisthenics.
All right, you can go ahead.
All right. So I heard in your presentation a lot of focus on past practices and things such as, when an employee had a large increase of multiple steps and things like that. And there was a little consternation on the council about the use of this data. What can we gain from knowing? I think we all agree that there were irregularities in the practices around compensation, but what can we gain from knowing this information? How would we put it to use?
So,
Hold on.
oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
So the compensation, you'll be able to use that, the feasible information is data driven, right? So you'll be able to use that as foundation for the compensation decision making. So basically you'll be able to use this data to make decisions and to balance out market competitiveness with other municipalities, as well as internal equity and long-term financial sustainability. So that's pretty much what it will give you once you have that compensation report.
All right, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
All right, Lincoln. Lincoln needs the mic.
Yeah, Lincoln, I'm sorry. Yeah, Lincoln doesn't need it.
You can manage, she can see Lincoln, she can really.
Ms. Goldsmeet makes a very beautiful presenter. She's like Vanna White.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation. Just trying to get a sense of your experience. I didn't see it in the proposal. How long have you been in business?
We've been in business 13 years.
So you're a fairly new company.
Yes.
Is Waldorf your only location?
Yes.
Have you worked with, you mentioned other municipalities, but have you worked with other municipalities in Prince George's County?
This will be the first in Prince George's County. We've done Georgia and Chicago.
I'm sorry, what is?
Sorry.
Oh, you can repeat it. You can.
First in PG, they've done Georgia and Chicago.
Chicago. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry about that. After I ask, I'll pass that. I noticed, in my humble opinion, that the proposal seems to be very labor intensive. And I'm just curious as to whether or not this is typical for a project and the size of the scope of other cities. You mentioned you have a senior auditor, a junior auditor, another junior auditor, and then an admin specialist. Can you explain to me how that normally works when you've done projects like this before with other municipalities?
Yes. So typically,
Hold on.
sorry. So typically, our senior auditor is project manager, oversees everything. Our junior auditors are who are deep diving into the data. They're the ones that do the bulk of the work. The administrative support, that's just there for if we need copies of things or things of that nature. That's that assistant to be able to help us as a team to collectively present our data in a position for our client. So that's how we do our work. We have our two junior auditors, and our senior auditor does everything over the review of everything. And it is particularly the project manager and the point of contact. But we do have a team of staff of folks who actually handles more than just that particular role. So the junior auditors are hands-on with everything, as well as our senior auditor, who will be pretty much the project manager and point of contact.
One more. Okay.
You can have one more. I think you can use steps.
Thank you.
I got my 10,000 in early. Thank you very much.
My final question.
Yes.
I noticed that you mentioned in your proposal that all reports will be presented in PDF format. What if we wanted to take a look at the empirical data behind the PDF that you submit to us, like in the Excel spreadsheet? Could we have access to that information as well?
Yes, but typically we normally. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, that's not a problem. That's a request that comes from you. Normally, we do present in PDF because we get that to the client and they do their overview. But if you want to see the behind and see the Excel portion, yes, we definitely share that information as well if a client requested it. So yes.
I'm done, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm gonna get the mic. Thank you, Cynthia. You know, I sort of speak your language because I'm a retired certified public accountant, although I keep the license active, but,
Okay.
and I appreciate your approach. An observation is, looking at this one, I don't think as much time is needed as you may propose for doing that audit portion of it. And it may be because you're focusing on that, because I think like a bean counter too, and I know what you're doing. But when I looked at what was being asked in the RFP, that is, I don't think that's as complicated as you might make it be. So if you want to revisit that, not right now, and think about it, because it's a big portion of the cost of your proposal, which we're considering.
Yes.
But the other thing that you mentioned that does intrigue me is you mentioned about HR versus budget. You work with us. So we definitely have that issue here. We have an issue where the employees are offered salaries above budget.
Correct.
And that's after the fact. That's a finding for you. And we need to work on that. But I'm curious what you were talking about, what you would do with the HR information you work with versus the budget. What was your thought on that?
So that's our analysis.
Okay.
Sorry. All right. All right. So that's a great question. So we will do the analysis, looking at the HR as well as the budget to make sure that those is in line. Once we are sure and definitively that that's in line, then we present what we have. I'm
Can you
sorry.
keep the pen in front
Oh,
of you?
sorry. I'm so sorry. So we would do the analysis, looking at the HR, also aligning that with the budget, making sure each employee is accounted for, making sure their salary and wages are accounted for, making sure that that's in line into what the city is looking for in this report. So once we do that analysis, we'll see that, oh, okay, this is HR, this is what we're saying, this is what the city is saying that this person should be getting paid in terms of their compensation, in terms of fringe benefits and things of that nature. Does that compare, does that align with their budget? And is that budget in line with the other municipalities that they are comparable to in terms of size? So that would be the analysis to say, hey, okay, this person is getting over that salary in terms of the HR, but it's not in line with our budget. So maybe we need to kind of, next time we approach this position, look at it in a different form.
Okay. That helps me. Keep kicking this thing. I'm sorry. Cynthia, I'll get that. I think that's it. I covered everybody. I appreciate you being here with us tonight. Thank you. And did you come in from Waldorf?
Yes, I did.
Did they plow the road?
A little bit.
You got some
Yeah,
lanes with this clear.
My office is it's still no, we were killing in the office. Some of the back roads out there is a little challenging, but for the most part, it's not too bad. So,
Okay. I really appreciate you being with us, and I
Thank you guys
am
for
impressed.
having me.
I am impressed with the presentation.
thank you so much.
Gotta give it a little more thought. But,
I love your
okay.
cologne.
Oh, thank
Whatever
you.
you're wearing, smells so good. Ain't no harm in complimenting them.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to talking to you guys soon.
Yeah, if you have a follow-up question, pass them on to Maisha.
Okay, thank you.
And she can get you in
Okay,
touch with us if
definitely.
you want to contact the council, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Have a good
thank
one.
you. And our final presentation tonight is by PRM. I think Joshua Hutton's with us, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, welcome, Joshua.
Thank you.
Joshua, we have a person who's hearing impaired and she needs the mic, so we're gonna ask you to take this when you talk to us.
Here, Dwayne.
Cynthia, pass it on. When you're up there, just keep this, it's a thing you can wrap it around your neck.
Okay.
Okay?
You have a presentation you want to share?
I do. I emailed it to.
Jasmine, she said it might be easier if he shared it from his screen.
Okay. Do you still have the Zoom meet, the Google Meet? Let me go talk about it. You're welcome.
It's magnetic.
Oh,
Yeah, you were just gonna put it
Oh,
in,
okay.
so you don't have to hold it,
I
that's
got you.
all.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Make sure your volume is off. You still have the Google Meet link. Yes. Like that. Oh, sorry, next easy. Yeah. And exactly. Things that are oh no, sorry. Right. Yeah, what is it? Link. Mhm.
While there's silence here, I want to mention to the audience, I can only maybe she can read my lips, but if you get a chance, the residents get a chance to approach the podium again with residents' concerns, and please make notes of what you're hearing here. If there's anything specific you'd like to present to us to consider as we try to decide on which contractor to choose.
Yes. Oh, it's fine. He's in.
Oh, okay. I thought you had to go.
Yes, well, we are. And I do want to remind Mayor and Council, that's my email, Mayor and Council.
Yeah, just council right now.
Yeah, that at 3:00 tomorrow, there's the Safe Streets Zoom meeting. And so just a reminder for those that would like to join.
Aisha, Caitlin, would you mind sending us a calendar invite for that with a link? Thank you. As you all know, if it's not in my calendar, I
add
don't
them to my
remember.
calendar invite.
Okay.
We're good.
There it is. Thank you, Joshua.
You're welcome. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, is it good to go?
Yes.
Well, thank you for having us. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joshua Hutton. I'm a principal with PRM Consulting Group. And we're pleased to have joined you this afternoon to discuss the proposal we submitted for the audit of the comprehensive audit of salaries and the comprehensive org structure assessment along with the comp study. And so I will go through a few slides with you this afternoon that covers the overview of our proposal, and we'll get into the project methodology, a little bit about ourselves and the firm, and then we'll get into the project methodology and timeline. And then I will also take any questions that you may have relative to our proposal and the steps that we'll take to complete it. So without further ado, any questions, anything for me before I get started?
Anybody have a question before we get started after reading the proposal? I think we'll let you go through the intro and
Okay,
and approach. Thank you.
sounds good. So for you, table of contents, we'll walk through again, as I mentioned, who we are, a little bit of detail about PRM. And then we'll cover the study objective and scope, the project methodology, talk about the timeline, and then lastly, Q&A. So a little bit about PRM. We're a human resources firm based out of Washington, D.C. We've been in existence since 1999. Our managing director, his name is Jim Moss. He came over from the prior Towers Pridden, which is the now new Towers Watson. He used to be a vice president in compensation for the firm. And since then, established PRM. PRM stands for People Really Matter. And so we specialize in a myriad of different HR practices stemming from the roots of our organization and company, classification and compensation. And from there, we practice different things and navigate into different areas of human resources relative to reward and recognition, employee benefits and perks. We offer actuarial services. We also do performance management. I mentioned compensation. We do a lot also in leadership development and training. And we do a lot of org assessments and redesign and development for a myriad of different clients. We specialize in a not-for-profit compensation survey that we produce annually. And we work across different industries from nonprofit, city to local government entities, private, and also we get into federal government and different practices along the realms of those different industries. For myself, part of the project team, I'm the project manager that will be facilitating the project. I specialize in class and comp, and my focus area is primarily in city and county governments. I work with a lot of quasi-governments as well, nonprofits and private sector. And any questions about the firm before I move on? Background about us? Okay. Getting into step 2, our next objective, the study objective and scope. And so from what we've observed, the city is now into the process of undertaking a comprehensive assessment of its wages and salaries. And so we wanted to take a look at that for what it's worth across the different fiscal years. And that's something that we understood that needed to be evaluated along with salary adjustments and how those COLA adjustments have been put in place fiscal year to fiscal year. And if they still make sense, or if salaries need to be looked at relative to the COLAs and the across the board adjustments relative to your local labor market as one of your primary objectives for the study. Secondary to that, there's a comprehensive org structure that is being requested across the city's departments. And so we're honing into the administration and also the public safety departments of the city, looking at any impact relative to employees, positions, is the positions in the workforce accommodating the work that's being performed across those various departments, and is the manpower in place to conduct that work. And so a span and control analysis is something that will perform in regards to that task. And lastly, I take it as the fun part. The compensation study is where we really get into salaries and market analysis and looking at regional competitors relative to the city. And this component is very critical to the salary structures that you're operating from, the type of positions, and if those positions are competitive in the marketplace to what you consider to be your marketplace within the DC metro area labor market. Working with the city to complete those 3 predominant tasks, we would look to collaborate with city administration. And so working with them, that entails getting into the background data of the city, salaries, positions, position documentation, your salary administration plans, budgets, and your budget team and your budget that you're working from for the various departments, job classifications, job descriptions. We take a look at the pay structures and the type of structure you're operating from. I believe it's a 30-grade structure today with step increments included in it. Also, with city administration, we'll work with them for project coordination throughout the course of the project. And then city leadership, we look to them in regards to development of what we reference as a compensation philosophy. Very important, kind of sets the foundation of your salary structure and how your pay is administered. And so in most local county jurisdictions, city and local, we provide you with 3 different percentile layouts of how to gauge a compensation philosophy or target in regards to where you should be. In most instances, city and local county governments target the 50th percentile, also known as the market median. And so that's something that we would discuss with your board and city leadership once we get to that point of evaluating the data amongst your labor markets to determine what that should be for your comp philosophy. Also, strategic direction comes from that group in regards to, are we staying on task and headed in the right direction with the different objectives we're completing within the study. And then city employees, typically looking at their demographic data and job data. We work in tandem with city with the city administration, HR teams to gather that information to evaluate. And then on our end, we assist with implementation cost estimates, job analysis, market pricing, the org assessment process for this particular initiative, structure design, technical support and training. So that's the collaborative effort between the city and PRM that we would anticipate in regards to pursuing the objectives identified within the study. And then moving into the project methodology, step 3, this gets into the high-level steps that we would take to evaluate the city's employee salaries, the org assessment, and also get into the compensation program design. And so it starts with discovery, and that's step 1, and that's beginning the background data collection of all employees, positions, salary structures, etc. Talking about and developing the compensation philosophy. We will also develop a communications plan that will follow throughout the course of the study. And leadership interviews is very critical during the discovery phase to understand the ins and outs of what their departments are facing, what their management teams and their employees, impacts, span of control assessment, so we have a better understanding of your org structures and how your positions are developed. Also helps us identify recruitment and retention issues in the various areas across the city, talking to management and senior leadership in regards to those particular interviews. And so that carries us over into step 2. And for you, in regards to this initiative, it's the audit of your employee salaries and annual pay increases. And so this is something that we will look at fiscal year by fiscal year to gauge, if in fact the right adjustments were being applied or if any recommendations need to be made from a market analysis standpoint, and really evaluate what those trends were across the fiscal years, looking at the demographic data of your employees. We also assess salary increase policies and procedures along with your salary scales to see if that has been intact fiscal year by fiscal year. What was those market rate adjustments or COLA adjustments that were applied, and to whom they were applied to for your employee groups and your employee staff across the various fiscal years. And so that's something that will be assessed first as part of your study to really understand the foundation and how your base salaries have been administered for the last several years. And then that will carry us over into step 3, which is your organizational assessment. And this particular step is getting into classification standards, how your jobs are classified today, how many classifications do you have? I believe you're looking at around 78 employees, and so we want to get a better understanding of the actual position classifications that those employees are occupied by. Government regulations, we're getting into the Fair Labor Standards Act review, American Disabilities Act, and we want to evaluate your position descriptions, your job documentation, and make sure that you're compliant with different regulations, government regulations from the standpoint, non-exempt, exempt, your positions passing the salary threshold for the salary test associated with the FLSA. And so we'll take a look at that as part of the assessment. Job descriptions, they play a role. Are they up to date? Do we need to look at them and assist with any updates that may need to be applicable to job descriptions relative to market best business practices? We also will evaluate your org charts, which plays a critical role in understanding the foundation of the city and how you're structured today, along with your salary scales. Salary scales also chime into the org structure from a grading perspective to understand how positions are graded within your org structure today, and also your salary structure. From there, that carries us over into step 4, which is the compensation program design. This is shifting gears into the compensation study portion for the city. And with this particular part of the assessment, we're looking at developing your market. So this gets into the DC labor market and identifying local municipalities, cities, and local jurisdictions that would be comparable peers to the city, and evaluating what we reference as benchmark positions. So as we assess your salaries in step 2 and look at the org assessment process in step 3, that gets us around to step 4 in regards to the type of positions you'll be assessing in the marketplace. And so we're looking to benchmark all of your positions across the competitors, along with taking a look at salary range data. This is looking at salary structures, midpoint maximums, and also perhaps actual average salaries for the positions across the different competitors. It also entails not just looking at compensation and salaries. There's a base pay component to it and also a variable pay component. So we get into anything outside of base pay, which is referenced as variable pay, bonuses, shift differentials, on-call pay, callback pay, those type of different nuances, promotions, incentives. Those things are also looked at amongst the competitors as it relates to position-specific roles within the city. Benefits is another component. From a total rewards perspective, we want to make sure that not alone are the salaries competitive, but are your benefits packages that are offered by the city today also competitive? And so that's something that to take into account when we speak from a total rewards, total compensation perspective in regards to recruitment and retention. And so as we assess and develop the compensation program, we get into comp ratio analysis. That's looking at how salaries of current employees today are being compared to the salary range midpoints of their current structure to get an understanding of where you are from a competitive state. So that gives us a good starting point and assessment of salary so that when we go to market and it's time to now recommend a new employee pay program to you, we'll know where we need to improve from relative to your market competitive starting point. Job grading is another component of this. Once your market analysis is complete, we get into the development of the salary structure and what that should be. That entails job grading and where specific positions should be graded within your structure, how many salary grades that structure should contain, and so on from that point. Pay equity analysis can also be referred to internal equity analysis, also within grade assessments. And so we're looking for any type of pay compression over the course of time, typically stems from starting pay practices. Most organizations bump into internal equity and compression from bringing in higher salaries that are above most of the current salaries in certain positions and occupations. And that creates internal equity and different compression that impacts budgets and also impacts recruitment and retention from different perspectives. And so we look at that once we develop your new system, determine job grading where positions to grow, and then lastly, taking a look at the actual employee pay to determine if salaries need to be adjusted, commensurate with experience, and where folks should actually be within their range. The peer jurisdictions will, in tandem with developing your compensation philosophy, this is something that goes parallel hand in hand. Looking at the peer jurisdictions is something that we'll talk and discuss with you, but we typically look at total operating revenue, employee size, in regards to comparisons regarding peers and how they compare to you. So we have some apples to apples in regards to good competitors within the region, and that makes sense. And another big thing in regards to determining competitors is, are you actually losing folks to those different competitors? It's one thing if you're recruiting and attracting them to join the city, that's a win for the city. But if you're losing them to other municipalities and jurisdictions, we'd like to see who they are and what type of positions. So that helps us identify where the market is perhaps being challenging for the city amongst competitors. Mm-hmm. What complements peer jurisdictions is published salary survey sources. And so we keep a salary survey library of a multitude of different surveys based upon industry and position specific. And so those salary surveys help complement the peer jurisdictions if need be. And so that helps give a balance to the private sector, nonprofit, other industries that we're honing into that we might not be able to get more pertinent data from within that peer group that we identify. So that's objective, and we determine that once we get there, and after we identify the data that the peer group is providing us with. Salary increase policies, salary scales, we look at those as well as part of the design of the comp program. Do they need to be updated? And things need to be refined around promotions, lateral transfers, starting pay, things of that nature. And then lastly, we move into step 5, study deliverables. And so we do a draft report to start, where we go through everything and present that to the board and senior and city leadership, get your feedback around the recommendations and what we've assessed between the 3 different areas of assessment, and then morph that into a final report and begin to plan for implementation. And so that covers our 5 steps process in regards to how we would conduct the study. And then moving into project timeline. We're anticipating about 4 months to complete the study. We've provided time, elapsed time, to provide it to you in weeks. And so this is about 16 weeks we're projecting, over 4 months at the time, beginning with the discovery, which is about 1 to 2 weeks. And then second, the audit of employee salaries and annual pay increases. That's about another 2 to 3 weeks there. And then organizational assessment, we're looking at that between weeks 5 and 8. And then lastly, the comp program design, weeks 9 through 15. And then we wrap up the study deliverables. So that's our study methodology and our project timeline. Any questions and QAs for us?
Lots of questions. We're gonna have to share that microphone.
Sure.
And we can start again with Cynthia. Cynthia, you were eager.
My question is.
Wait a minute, hold on.
Girl, them steps.
Go ahead.
Okay, you said there's a step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Are there gonna be 5 different teams or one team doing each step?
One team.
Wait a minute, hold on.
Good afternoon. Thank you. There's one team doing each step. As part of our proposal, we didn't include it as part of the presentation today, but our project team consists of myself as the project manager. Again, my background is in class and comp, so I oversee all different MIRAs of the study. But we also have 2 other team members that will be joining that specializes in organizational assessment. So I have a principal that's overseeing that will partner with me for that piece. And then also communications. And so we also have our managing director that's part of our firm that kind of gives us the QA throughout each step of the study. And so between our group, we're working through each phase as one team.
Okay, so you'll turn it over to your manager before you turn it over to us for them to get their approval, right?
Correct.
Okay, I'm through.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Gonna do Brianna next.
Yeah, Brianna can go next. You can get your exercise.
Yes. I'm going to ask you one of the same questions I asked one of the other groups, and I don't know if you had the benefit of hearing that question to get your answer, but how do you determine peer cities? What factors are you looking at other than just population to determine who we should be modeling our processes after?
Thank you for that. As part of determining peer jurisdictions, we hone into first taking a look at the city's total operating revenue and employee size. Those are 2 key factors we look at when determining peer jurisdictions. We also, through leadership interviews, which is part of step 1 discovery phase of our approach to the project, is meeting with senior leadership in various areas of the city to understand where recruitment and retention issues reside. I mentioned earlier, attracting folks to the city is a win for the city, but losing folks to other municipalities is a concern. And so we want to understand where your employees are going within those peer jurisdictions. and why. It might not necessarily always be about salary. And so that's something that we would investigate and determine. But really honing into who's apples to apples in regards to a comparison to the city and what makes sense relative to recruitment and retention challenges that you've been facing.
Thank you. Last question. It's kind of a wild one.
Hold on.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
All right. So last question. It's kind of a wild one. Have you ever encountered in your work a city where, let's say, for instance, the salaries are completely inappropriate, too high, too low, it doesn't really matter, and your recommendation was to completely change, what salaries are being offered to your employees? Have you ever seen that happen? And if so, how did the city go about making the recommended changes?
Thank you for that. Yes, I've experienced a myriad of different type of compensation issues and challenges from city and local municipalities. Give an example, I recently completed a study for Baltimore County. They have a good amount of employee groups, and so there's different challenges across Baltimore County, and their employee pay program had not been evaluated for almost 10 plus years. And so looking at what the challenges that they typically were faced with are around starting pay practices and internal equity compression challenges. And so looking at how pay is administered across a locality is very important to determine where enhancements need to be made. In most cases, there's been pay freezes over several fiscal years. It's impacted a lot of local and county municipalities, and they're still in recovery mode along with COVID that just happened not too long ago. That's kind of belabored things in regards to salary adjustments and salary increase budgets within the local municipalities. So when we get to that point, really honing into the market is where the rubber meets the road to determine, what are the market trends for positions, and are you guys above market, below market, where are you? And that kind of helps us determine what type of salary structure to recommend. And so when we get to that point, recommending a salary structure, it should always be market-based. And so that kind of hones back into your comp philosophy and your target that we would need to evaluate and determine. I mentioned that most city and local municipalities hone into the 50th percentile, which is also known as the market median. That's a cost-neutral place when you're using taxpayer dollars and you're in tight constraints with budgets within that type of industry. And so when we get to that point, in most cases, we're improving or moving to a new salary structure. And so that's putting an enlightenment on salary, on employee pay, and also mitigating any future challenges around compression. And so our goal is to make sure that you're able to hire the right candidates, but also be able to retain.
Thank you. I have no other questions.
All right. Agnella, are you ready?
I will tell you that I was quite impressed with the references included in your proposal. It seems to be really a good fit of parallel and peer jurisdictions that you have been getting your hands on. And so that speaks highly of the experience and the RFP you presented. Can you talk to us about the 1-year implementation plan that you're offering, so you deliver the report and you're not out the door? At least that's what I understand. Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. And so once we get through the study deliverables, and now we're into the final report and moving into implementation with the city, that process is ongoing. And so it's a matter of what you need to implement, what type of systems you're working from, HRS systems, be it PeopleSoft, Workday, and what you're encountering in regards to implementing a new structure. So we work with your HR teams and the administration of how to implement, and also how to coach and train supervisors and management staff around how the structure now works. And so what I'm referencing is teachings about starting pay practices that mitigate internal equity and compression, how to use the salary structure now with the tools embedded in it to help set pay. What is a good rate to offer a director of a department or a manager that's overseeing an HVAC team? So those type of things we want to hone into. what are different pay practices for police and public safety. Most of them operate from a step progression scale, which is different from an open range scale. And so coaching your staff to understand how the data is utilized, how the peer jurisdictions are utilized, is very critical to keep the new employee pay program functioning appropriately and also working for you in the future. Another thing about the system, once it's in place and implemented, it should be reviewed biannually. So that's every 2 years to make sure that it's staying competitive with your peers that could be moving the market without you knowing it at any given moment by fiscal year. And so that's something that will also stay on board with you along the way and make sure you have the tools in place to administer the program. The salary structure is one component of it. You have position descriptions. So getting your position documentation in place associated with your classification system. That's something that we'll look at with the city in regards to what we reference as position grading manual. And so that really goes through the division hierarchy of classifications, job families, how they should be used in regards to managerial roles, all the way down to lower level positions within the city.
Okay, but how much time is that part of 1 year implementation plan after the final deliverable? Is it a limit of 10 hours during a 12-month period? How do you define how much support to provide after the final deliverable and after the final payment?
Depending upon what the city needs at that point. In most cases, by fiscal year, the new system is implemented at the beginning of that fiscal year. And so if I'm not mistaken, most of those fiscal years start July 1st to June 30th. And so once we work with the teams and figure out what's needed to implement, that could go on for a 1 to 2 week process or up to a month. It could go longer than that. It could go up to 2 to 3 months. It depends on what's needed for implementation at that point.
Okay, and yes, you, according to the methodology, would be recommending changes to current job descriptions. So you would deliver edited new job descriptions without an additional charge.
Correct.
Thank you.
That's good?
Those
All
are my
right, let's get the
questions.
mic over to Lincoln, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation. Some things that actually stood out to me, and thank you very much for going into the detailed explanation of your 5-step work process. That was very good, and I was very impressed by that. Also, I noticed that we spoke to the audit being offered in both Excel and PDF format. That's also very impressive to me as well. Just a quick follow-up question, as I asked the previous presenter. Have you worked with any municipalities in Prince George's County?
Learn quickly.
Yes, we have. We have over in the Quad City and local county government industry by itself, we have over about 50 clients that we've worked with over the course of time and our 30 years of being in existence. Just recently, we worked with Prince George's County, and we're also working with PG County Memorial Library System. And for myself, I just finished another big project, should have referenced as part of this, with the Charles County government. And I just revamped their entire employee pay program, and we're working towards implementation as we speak for that. And we're moving into the local library systems and also quasi-governments, but I'll leave another one that we recently worked with the city of Annapolis.
Thank you for that answer. I actually only have one more question. You mentioned the position classification grading, and I noticed that there's a position classification grading manual that you will produce at the end of the actual study itself. Can you speak to that a little bit more, provide some details as to what that information will entail?
As part of step 3, the organizational assessment, when we get into classification standards, we're going to be evaluating the position documentation of all the jobs, the job descriptions, and your classifications. And so with the position classification manual, it gets into organizing your jobs into job families, and within your job families, what are the hierarchies within your particular jobs? And so We do grade leveling, and so we give definitions by level for job criteria. What's a managerial director level job? What's a professional job? What's a paraprofessional? What's a lower level, entry level job? There's leveling and definitions to each criteria for positions within a particular job family. So for example, human resources could have 4 different levels within it. We could have a director, a manager, a senior analyst, and an analyst. Within that position classification manual, you'll see definitions to each level, and that'll help you identify where positions should be graded going forward in the future. And it also helps us assess where they should be today with the development of the position classification manual. And within that particular job family with this human resources example, you have 4 different levels. From that layout, we assess those 4 different levels in the marketplace as well, and also how they're graded within your salary structure. And so we'll look at the grades and the hierarchy of the grades, and that's something that will be developed going forward. And it gets into level of responsibility, interactions, what positions, where they operate externally from the city, and it also gets into level of responsibility. There's 5 different compensable factors that we define in each job family within each level to help you identify your position and classification standards.
Mr. Chair, I have no more questions. Thank you.
Okay, I have a couple. Thank you, Maisha. You made reference to pay scales versus open range, and we had, I'm not sure if this is just an observation, maybe a question you want to discuss, but we had a hybrid for years where we had a pay scale for some of the workers doing the routine task, and then certainly directors were dealt with separately. We were never in that scale. Now they're in the scale. And I'd like you to consider how that fits together if we were to choose to do this job. Because our system now, putting the directors in the top positions in the scale is very odd compared to the other municipalities I talked to. We have a time frame now. You said 4 months. And we have a time frame. We got to put a budget together and approve that budget by, we got to approve it by June. We're going to start looking at it in April. And I guess I want you to consider, maybe comment on this, that if we chose you soon and you started doing this work, we now have decided to include all 70 some positions by job description in the budget, because it used to be just an employee services line where they lumped a big sum of money, and we want to see it specifically now. So before we populate those lines, could you prioritize the work and get us some assessment on what those salaries you would think they should be before we do the budget? You understand that question? Yeah, okay, you can answer that one if you want to.
Thank you for that. Yes, typically when compensation studies commence, they're around the budget planning process. And so we're embarking upon starting points that are typically anywhere between December and January for most municipalities that need this type of service done as they do their budgetary planning. So the rubber hits the road once we get started. And so we're getting very fast paced with what we're doing in regards to our steps. In regards to getting to data and compensation data and being able to conduct the market analysis to have some numbers to recommend for what should go into the budget by an appropriate time, we're able to work in tandem. And so looking at step 2, step 3, and step 4, working parallel to each one of those steps to get to that data is critical. And so part of step 4 is really where the rubber meets the road for recommendations for the budget process. We start the market development or market collection process as soon as we identify peers. And so a goal for us would be to meet the senior leadership right away, get a good understanding of the ins and outs of what they're experiencing in their worlds, but to really then discuss identifying peer jurisdictions. And so as soon as we're able to identify those peer jurisdictions, we're able to go to market, collect data, and begin that process for step 4 while we're conducting step 2 and step 3. And just to add to that, we're able to, in most cases, budgetary presentations are anywhere or prepping for March to April and getting into the finalization of it in June and invitation in July. We strive to have a draft report developed by the beginning of March and so that we can have something ready to go for final report preparation by the time April 1.
You can just nod your head on this one, yes or no, but you make a reference to travel. If any, and you're located in DC, so you wouldn't be charging us for commuting expenses. And you wouldn't envision any travel. You just included that in the standard language. Okay, I wanna thank you for being here and just point out, I didn't say this to the other presenters, but it really does help this council to interact with the personality that we would be working with too. So thank you for being here in person and sharing your thoughts with us. I went around the council, so I'm ready to move on. And thank you, Joshua, for being with us tonight.
You're absolutely welcome.
The next thing I have on the agenda is for residents, and if you've jotted down any questions and you'd like to address us so that we can make note of it and think about it as we go through this process, please go to the podium and take the microphone with you. No, they can come and get it. It looks like everybody wants to go home. I wanted to end it there. I don't know if there are any hands online. Do you see any hands online, Maisha? You have a computer over there?
No, I'm out since. Jasmine?
There are no hands online.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you,
everybody
Brianna.
wants to get out of here. Okay, Brianna saw that.
Mhm.
Then I have, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn.
Okay, and
Yeah.
it's seconded by,
I second.
all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, I heard Cynthia, that's 5. Good evening, everyone. We are now adjourned.
Good evening, everyone.